Hi there, I'm Andrew Vay Hansen, and welcome to Boy Meets Quilt, where I get to chat with my crafty friends about their creative processes and the projects that they're working on and all that good stuff. Today, I am joined once again with my dear friend Shannon Reed.
Hi, everyone.
And today we're gonna talk a little bit more generally about creativity and your process. Because last time, if you saw the last video that Shannon was in, which just feels like happened yesterday.
I wonder why.
It's funny how that works. Movie magic. But clearly wasn't yesterday
No,
because
of
this
course not.
video is posted so long after that first
We
one.
look so different.
So, yes. But in your other video, we specifically talked about the crafts and the projects that you were interested in. So I think we covered that really well. Although, because of your crafting prolificness,
Sure. Being very prolific with
being
crafts.
very prolific with your crafting, there's always more that you could
Of
show
course,
us
I
and
could
talk
for
about.
hours, but yeah, we probably don't have the space for that.
But one thing our viewers probably don't know, unless they also follow you, because maybe you got a bunch of followers from
Maybe.
the last video, is that you're a writer,
I am.
a professional writer. You
I am.
actually make a living as a writer.
Part of my living is made as a writer. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, which sounds kind of crazy to say, but it's true. I'm
exciting.
very proud of that.
You should be. You've worked very hard.
Thank you.
And you're very talented, and so
Well,
it's
thank
all well deserved. But obviously, as we all know, writing takes a lot of creativity.
It is.
And it's also a creative process. So you are creative in many different ways. And I'm just wondering, specifically with your writing, let's talk about that first. How does your creative process work for you?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's one I'm also a college professor as well, and I teach in the creative writing program at the University of Pittsburgh. So I'm working with undergraduates almost all the time who have that question as well, like where do ideas come from? How do I get those ideas out and make them work and make them stay? So it's something I've thought a lot about. Which is all to say that I'm not really sure how it all works.
Okay.
You know, there's something mysterious that happens in any person can be creative, and when that creative process is happening, I don't know that it's something that can be like programmed or
Right.
forced into action. But I do know that for myself, a big part of my creative process is being open to what's going on around me. Watching people, thinking about what's going on in the news and current events, noticing things that have made me very happy or very angry or made me laugh really hard recently. The viewers of this probably don't know that I'm mostly a humor writer. That's what I'm known for. And humor and anger are really close together. And so I find often something that I'm sort of grumpy or cranky about is probably something other people are grumpy and cranky about, and something that they might like to laugh about as well. So I'm often looking for sort of common experiences and thinking about sort of actually writing those down, keeping a list in my phone, or just sort of mentally filing them to come back to them. It's very rare that I have an idea and immediately sit down and start working on it.
Right.
I'd rather just kind of put it in the old brain and let it percolate for a while.
That's interesting. That makes me, because I know for me, I tend to, it's kind of rare for me to just have an idea pop into my head and be like, oh, that's what I want to make next. For me, I tend to work better when someone gives me a prompt.
Yes.
Or there's like some challenge on Instagram or in my Quilters Guild.
Absolutely.
And then someone else gives me that first idea, I can riff off of that. But it's interesting that you mentioned that you do get ideas that pop in your head.
Sometimes, yeah.
And you write them down for later use. And that actually is maybe something that happens more often to me than I realize.
It
I just
probably
don't
does.
write them down. And so then I don't
That's the
remember
trick.
that I had the idea. And it probably happens to everyone out there who's creating, like you have these ideas, but you just you know, they're while you're driving in your car or whatever, and you just forget about them. But if you were to write them down, and then maybe a year later, you go through them, and you're like,
Absolutely.
oh, I think I'm ready to actually work on that idea.
So in 2018, one of the pieces that I wrote for McSweeney's Internet Tendency was the most read piece on the site. And it was called, If People Talk to Other Professionals the Way They Talk to Teachers. And I'm bringing it up because that was an idea I had maybe 3 or 4 years beforehand. And it wasn't completely articulated and shaped, but I just was thinking about, like, if people talk to plumbers the way they talk to teachers, like, what would they say? And just sort of filing those ideas away. So it does sometimes take 3, 4, 5 years for those ideas to sort of work their way to the surface into something that you actually want to act upon. But I always say this to my students, like, what you want is you want a pile of sort of half-formed, half-assed ideas so that you're not just staring at a blank computer screen or a blank piece of notebook paper or sitting at a sewing machine and looking at a ton of fabric or looking at a piece of cross-stitch fabric. Like, you want something that you can sort of be like, okay, well, I guess I'll start here and start shaping this, and probably you'll come up with something great or at least worth working on that won't be so stressful. The stress of, like, come up with something amazing right away is just too much.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Now, I imagine most people watching this video, and myself included, the crafting part of our lives tends to be more of a hobby than a profession. We're not making money at it necessarily, although who knows. But you are a professional writer. People are paying you to write. How often do you actually get commissioned with an idea? Like someone approaches you and says, I need you to write an article or a humor piece or whatever about specifically this idea. Or how often is it you just writing things out and then submitting it to as many places as you can?
More the latter. It's definitely more the latter. I would say that I'm still at the point in my career where I'm doing a lot of hustling to be like, here's an idea, do you want to buy my idea? I put it together, I think it's good. Versus people sort of handing me something to do. Although, if anyone needs a polish on a script or something like that, I would love to do that work for you, so get in touch.
Be really good.
But, yeah, I think for me it's still coming from within me more. I have been assigned and commissioned pieces, and that can be fun too. And, the one thing I wanted to say when you were talking about a prompt or being given an idea or something like that, is I actually think that's really valid and helpful. Sometimes my students are like, oh, if I got a prompt, it's not a real short story. Like, if I was told to write about
like
a dog.
cheating.
Yeah, like you have to do all the work yourself.
Right.
And I just don't think that's true. I mean, we both came out of a theater background.
Right.
And theater is all about limitations. Theater is all about, like, you have 3 people. So you can write as many characters as you want, but you only have 3 actors to play them. So figure that all out.
Well, and also just from we both were acting majors in our program. And so as an actor, it's rare, with the exception of maybe some improv or stuff, but it's rare that you're just coming up with everything on your own. Absolutely. You're working with other people's ideas, and yet you still have to bring your own creative process to it, your own craft. And it's a real skill and a craft to be an actor, and that's not cheating at all.
Not at all. Not at all.
And I have to say, for me personally, working from a prompt has led to some of my most exciting and interesting, personally fulfilling work. I don't know how it's accepted by an audience necessarily, but for me personally, I get super excited, and it still feels like it's completely my own, because even if I'm working with a group of people and we're all working off the same prompt, we have all come up with completely different ideas of how to approach that prompt. So it is all, you can own that.
Absolutely. The same thing is true with my students. If I give them a prompt, I know not every single one of them, but many of them feel like, oh, I just did the most obvious thing. But they don't look alike. Like, if I lined up these pieces of writing, they're nothing alike. Everyone's just a way to bring your own unique viewpoint into something without having that horrific struggle of, like, what am I gonna write about? You have something to write about. Now shape it into your own voice. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good to know. So, something that I think pretty much anyone who's in a creative process encounters is feeling stuck. As both a crafter and a writer, do you have a ritual or a process or a way to like move through that
Yeah,
funk?
I just it's the world's lamest ritual because it's just sort of telling myself that's okay. You don't have to. It's different if I'm writing on deadline because I always meet my deadlines and my editors are watching. I'm always really happy to meet my deadline.
Yes.
But I if I'm crafting a piece of writing for myself, and or it's going to have a shape at some future point and it's just not coming together, I just say okay. I'm going to push a little bit more, and if it's not happening, I'm going to do something else. So I don't give up right away, because I would never get anything done if I stopped the first moment that I was like, this is hard. I would just stop. But maybe I'll push a little bit further, and I'll be like, all right, so this humor piece isn't coming together. Maybe I'll pitch some story ideas, or maybe I'll work on some fiction, or maybe I'll just do an outline for a book or something like that. Or even I'll go to my website and work on that, or I'll update my Instagram feed, or I'll do something that's just getting my brain away from that.
Yeah.
I always tell my students, you can take a nap, get something to eat, or take a walk. And those three things are like 75% of the time probably what you need to just get out of your own head a little bit.
Yeah, I like that. And I like just the idea of giving yourself permission to just, you know what, if you're not into it right then, that's okay.
It's totally fine.
Especially for those of us who are hobbyists, you know.
Right, absolutely. But I think we're so hard on ourselves. Like, we have this idea of productivity is just constantly producing, but you have to feed that well that you're producing from.
Right.
And
absolutely.
that's sometimes seeing how beautiful the sun looks in the trees, or, talking to somebody, or just having a really great plate of pasta. It's not just creating.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. It's also in this day of social media, which this is part of, but I know for me, I go through Instagram and I see certain people who are just constantly putting out beautiful product after beautiful product. They're just working. And I start to be like, I need to work more. Oh, I need to put more posts on Instagram. Oh, I need to do this. I need to do that. And I'm not even doing this for a living. Right. It's just this pressure that you start putting on yourself. And you do have to take that time and give yourself permission to just work in your own process, on your own timeline.
And for me also, I would say, like, I just, when I craft something, I try to make beautiful things, but I'm just following a pattern. I'm not somebody who's like, I have this idea and I will realize it through fabric. I just do what the pattern says. And that's a nice break too. Like, to have something that maybe you're not incredibly skilled at, and you're just sort of going through the motions, but it's fulfilling to you. It doesn't always have to be this incredibly regenerative, creative process.
Yeah, don't put that pressure on it. No. Yeah. I think that's a key. No pressure.
No pressure. No pressure at all.
There's enough pressure in your life from all other different avenues. Don't put it on your crafting. Don't put it on the stuff that you love to do.
Yeah, I think that's very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Nice. So, for today, we're gonna maybe do a little actual quilting, which is my
totally his wheelhouse, not my wheelhouse.
I just love it. So, last time you were here, we put piping around a pillow, which was very cool, and I'm actually going to be doing that for any future pillows that I make.
Me too.
Because I didn't realize how easy it was.
Yeah, and it looks great. It's so simple.
But the show is called Boy Meets Quilt, and I do love to quilt.
Or Lady Meets Quilt today.
Boy Meets Girl Who Meets Quilt. That's what it's called.
That's catchy.
It just rolls off the tongue. Today, we're going to be doing some free motion quilting. Now, you have done some free motion
I have done some free motion quilting. I'm so glad that I just made this big point about how you should do something that you're not so great at, and that you just kind of do what you're told, because that's completely free motion quilting for me. I'm not a visual artist. I don't draw or sketch or anything like that. And so the idea of the, free motion quilting is really painting with thread. I know that's a specific kind of craft, but in a way it is.
I call it doodling with
Yeah,
yeah.
and I'm not so much of a doodler, so I'm still learning how to do it. But it's really fun. I really enjoy it.
All right. Well, let's head to the sewing machine
Yay.
and do a little FMQ. Hi there, and we're back. We just finished some free motion quilting.
Sure did.
With Shannon. So, how'd it go?
I thought it went pretty well. It is definitely something that the more you do it, it's not even that you get so much better at it. It's just a different way of thinking, of using your hands in the sewing machine. You just get more used to it.
Right. So, thank you
so
Shannon.
much for teaching me free motion
Of
quilting.
course. Thank you for being on my video once again. And I'm sure there will be more Shannon appearances
Perhaps.
sometime in the future.
Perhaps.
And
We'll see if the fans write in.
that's right. So, speaking of fans, all you YouTubers out there, if you're enjoying this video and want to see more, please click subscribe below. Also, check out my website. Check out Shannon Reed's website and all things social media. And we will see you next time. Happy quilting, happy crafting.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.